Most people approach manifestation like they're climbing a mountain, step by step, pushing forward, working towards something distant. But quantum manifestation doesn't work forward. It works backwards. And once you understand why, you'll never manifest the same way again. You've been taught to desire your way into reality, to want harder, visualize clearer, feel more intensely. You've probably spent countless hours imagining your ideal life, repeating affirmations until your voice is hoarse, trying to convince the universe that you really, truly deserve what you're asking for. And maybe it's worked sometimes, but more often than not, you're left with that familiar feeling of reaching through glass, touching something that seems so close, yet remains impossibly out of reach. Here's what happens when you manifest forward. Every time you focus on what you want as something you don't yet have, you're speaking the language of absence. You're broadcasting to the quantum field that this thing, this experience, this reality exists somewhere else, in some future moment. And the field, being the perfect mirror it is, reflects that exact truth back to you. Absence, distance, not yet. Think about this for a moment. When you say, "I want to be abundant," what are you really declaring? You're affirming that abundance is something you currently lack. When you visualize your dream relationship as something you're trying to attract, you're energetically confirming that love is missing from your present experience. The very act of wanting creates the energetic signature of not having. This is where quantum manifestation reveals its revolutionary secret. Instead of moving from lack toward fulfillment, you begin from fulfillment itself. You don't manifest by reaching forward into a future possibility. You manifest by stepping backward into a reality that already exists in the quantum field and living from that space now. Everything you could ever desire already exists as a complete, whole, perfect reality in the infinite field of potential. Every version of your life, from the most mundane to the most extraordinary, is already written, already real, already waiting. You're not creating something new. You're selecting something that is. The quantum field operates on a principle that most people find difficult to accept. Time isn't linear, and causation isn't what we think it is. At the quantum level, the future influences the present just as much as the present influences the future. When you align with an outcome that already exists in potential, you create what scientists call retrocausality. The future state begins organizing the present moment to match its frequency. But here's where most people stumble. They try to use this knowledge as another technique, another method to get what they want. They think, okay, I'll just pretend I already have it and then it will show up. But pretending isn't embodying. Hoping isn't knowing. And wanting, even if you dress it up in future tense language, is still wanting. True backward manifestation requires something more radical. The complete dissolution of the gap between you and your desire. Not bridging the gap, not shortening the gap, eliminating it entirely. When there is no gap, there is no journey. When there is no journey, there is only arrival. And when there is only arrival, manifestation becomes as natural as breathing. You see, consciousness isn't bound by the same rules that govern physical matter. Your awareness can exist in any reality, at any point in what we call time, instantly. The moment you choose to embody the consciousness of someone who already lives the reality you desire, you begin broadcasting from that frequency. And the quantum field, unable to distinguish between imagined embodiment and actual experience, begins collapsing probability waves to match your state of being. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't visualization. This is quantum mechanics applied to consciousness itself. When you observe from the endpoint, from the achieved outcome, from the place of already having, you change the entire trajectory of your reality. The future reaches back and reorganizes the present to create a coherent timeline. Let me give you an analogy that makes this clear. Imagine you're reading a mystery novel, but instead of starting at chapter 1, you flip to the final page and read how it ends. Now, as you go back and read from the beginning, every clue, every conversation, every seemingly random event takes on new meaning. You're not wondering what will happen. You know. And that knowing changes how you experience every page. Backward manifestation works exactly like this. When you start from the knowing of how your story ends, every present moment reorganizes itself around that conclusion. Opportunities appear that perfectly support your outcome. Coincidences arrange themselves with mathematical precision. People show up exactly when they need to. Resources flow effortlessly into your experience. Not because you're trying to make these things happen, but because they're the natural result of aligning with a timeline where they already have happened. The most profound part of this understanding is how it dissolves anxiety and urgency. When you know how the story ends, there's no need to force the plot. There's no need to manipulate the characters. There's no need to rush the timing. You simply allow the story to unfold with the confidence that comes from already knowing its conclusion. This is why people who master manifestation seem so calm, so certain, so unattached to outcomes. They're not hoping for results. They're not waiting for confirmation. They're living from a place where the result is already achieved, the confirmation already received. Their internal state reflects completion, not longing, fulfillment, not desire, gratitude, not need. And here's what happens in that state. The universe stops testing you. When your frequency broadcasts absolute certainty, when your energy signature says, "This is already done," the field stops presenting you with circumstances that challenge your belief. Instead, it begins delivering evidence that confirms your state of being. Most people experience manifestation as a negotiation with reality. They think they need to prove their worthiness, demonstrate their commitment, or convince the universe of their sincerity. But the quantum field doesn't require proof. It doesn't judge worthiness. It doesn't evaluate commitment. It simply matches frequency. Always. Perfectly. Without exception. When you embody the frequency of already having, the field has no choice but to reflect that frequency back to you. This isn't a spiritual concept dressed up in scientific language. This is how reality works at its most fundamental level. Consciousness shapes matter. Observation collapses possibility into experience. State of being determines experience of reality. If these quantum principles are shifting something inside you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to stay connected to this frequency of understanding. But let's go deeper into the practical mechanics of this process, because understanding the theory is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you learn to live from this understanding, to make it your default way of being. The first step in backward manifestation is what I call reality selection. Instead of trying to create your desired outcome, you select it from the infinite menu of possibilities that already exist. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine that you're standing in front of an enormous cosmic archive. Every possible version of your life exists here as a complete living reality. The version where you're financially abundant. The version where you're in perfect health. The version where you're living your soul's deepest purpose. They're all here, all equally real, all equally accessible. Your job isn't to build one of these realities from scratch. Your job is to choose one and step into it fully. Feel what it feels like to be the version of you who already lives that reality. Notice how that version of you thinks, breathes, moves through the world. What does certainty feel like in your body? What does fulfillment feel like in your nervous system? How does gratitude change your posture, your breathing, your entire energetic presence? This isn't imagination. This isn't pretending. This is quantum consciousness selecting which reality stream to align with. The moment you make this selection with your full being, you begin broadcasting from that timeline. Your thoughts reorganize around that identity. Your emotions stabilize in that frequency. Your actions begin flowing from that state of being. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. You can't do this from a place of lack trying to become abundance. You can't embody fulfillment while still energetically grasping for what you don't have. The selection must be complete, total, unconditional. When you choose a reality, you choose it so completely that the old reality simply dissolves. This is what I call the quantum leap. It's not a gradual transition from one state to another. It's an instantaneous shift from one timeline to another. One moment, you're the person who wants abundance. The next moment, you're the person who lives abundance. One moment, you're seeking love. The next moment, you're emanating love. The shift happens in consciousness first, and reality follows. The second element of backward manifestation is embodied certainty. This goes beyond belief, beyond faith, beyond hope. Certainty is the knowing that exists in your cells, in your breath, in the way you walk through the world. It's not something you think about, it's something you are. When you embody certainty, you stop looking for evidence that your manifestation is working. You stop checking your bank account for signs of increasing abundance. You stop analyzing every interaction for hints of romantic possibility. You stop monitoring your body for indications of improving health. Why? Because when you know something is already done, you don't need confirmation. The confirmation exists in your state of being. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive aspect of quantum manifestation. The moment you stop needing evidence is the moment evidence begins appearing everywhere. When you're no longer seeking proof, proof begins seeking you. When you're no longer asking, "Is it working?" reality begins demonstrating that it's already worked. Embodied certainty creates what quantum physicists call coherence. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions align around a single frequency. There's no internal contradiction, no energetic static, no mixed signals. You become a clear, consistent broadcaster of one reality, and the quantum field, responding to that clarity, begins organizing itself around your coherent state. Now, what we've explored today barely scratches the surface of the complete quantum consciousness system. While backward manifestation is revolutionary on its own, it's actually just one layer of a much deeper framework for consciousness mastery. If this understanding of reality selection and timeline coherence is awakening something profound within you, you'll find the complete roadmap in my book, Beyond the Frequencies, a quantum guide to consciousness mastery, where I reveal the 9 fundamental frequencies that govern all manifestation and the step-by-step practices for navigating between quantum realities with precision. It's linked in the pinned comment below. But let's address the elephant in the room. You might be thinking, this sounds great in theory, but how do I actually embody certainty when my current reality looks nothing like what I desire? This is where the third element comes in, the practice of reality assumption. Reality assumption is the conscious choice to live from your selected timeline, regardless of external circumstances. It's not about denying what you see, it's about choosing what you embody. Your current circumstances are the result of your past states of being. They're not indicators of what's possible now. They're not limits on what's available to you. They're simply the lag time between old patterns and new embodiment. When you assume your new reality, you begin making choices from that place. If you've selected the timeline where you're financially abundant, you make decisions from abundance, not scarcity. If you've chosen the reality where you're in perfect health, you treat your body as a temple, not a problem to be fixed. If you've embodied the version of yourself who lives your deepest purpose, you move through the world with that purpose as your guide, not your goal. This isn't about taking massive action or forcing change. It's about subtle, consistent alignment. The person who lives in abundance thinks different thoughts than the person who struggles with money. The person who enjoys perfect health has different habits than the person who fights illness. The person who lives their purpose moves with different energy than the person who searches for meaning. I'm curious, what's the first shift you notice when you begin embodying your desired reality? Drop a comment below and share which version of yourself you're ready to embody. As you begin living from your selected reality, something miraculous happens. The gap between your internal state and external circumstances begins to collapse. Not because you're forcing change, but because you've aligned with a timeline where that change is inevitable. The future version of you begins reaching back through time, organizing the present moment to support the outcome you've already embodied. Pause for a moment and feel this in your body. Take a deep breath and imagine the version of you who already lives your ideal reality. How does that version of you breathe? How do they hold their shoulders? What does confidence feel like in your chest? What does gratitude feel like in your heart? Let your body remember this state because this is your natural frequency when you're aligned with your truth. Now here's where this understanding becomes revolutionary. Most manifestation techniques focus on changing your external reality. But backward manifestation recognizes that external reality is always a reflection of internal state. When you change your internal reality completely, external reality has no choice but to follow. It's not a process of convincing the universe to give you what you want. It's a process of becoming so coherent in your desired state that the universe can't help but reflect it back to you. This is why quantum manifestation feels effortless to those who master it. They're not working against reality. They're working with the fundamental principles of how reality operates. They understand that consciousness is primary, matter is secondary. They know that observation shapes experience, not the other way around. They've learned to use their awareness as a tool for selecting reality, rather than just observing it. And here's perhaps the most profound insight of all. You've been doing this your entire life without realizing it. Every belief you hold, every identity you've adopted, every story you tell yourself about who you are and what's possible for you is already a form of reality selection. The only difference is that most people are selecting by default, unconsciously, based on past conditioning and external circumstances. Backward manifestation is simply the conscious application of what you're already doing unconsciously. Instead of letting your past determine your future, you let your desired future determine your present. Instead of allowing circumstances to dictate your state of being, you allow your state of being to create new circumstances. The shift from unconscious to conscious reality creation is the difference between being a victim of circumstances and being a creator of experience. It's the difference between hoping for change and being the change. It's the difference between wanting a different life and living a different life. Take a moment right now and comment below with this exact phrase: I am ready to manifest backwards. Don't just type it casually. Feel it as a declaration to the quantum field that you're choosing a new way of being, that you're ready to step out of the old loop of desire and lack and into the new paradigm of selection and embodiment. When you make this declaration, you're sending a clear signal that you're available for a different reality. As you make this shift, you'll notice changes in how you move through the world. Urgency begins to dissolve because you know that what belongs to you can't be delayed by time. Anxiety transforms into excitement because you're no longer worried about whether things will work out. You know they already have. Frustration becomes curiosity because unexpected developments are just the universe finding creative ways to deliver what you've already claimed. The people around you will notice these changes too, even if they can't name what's different. They'll sense a new quality in your presence, a groundedness that wasn't there before. They'll find themselves drawn to your energy because coherence is magnetic. When someone is fully aligned with their truth, others feel it and are naturally attracted to that frequency. This magnetic quality isn't something you try to develop. It's the natural result of eliminating internal contradiction. When every part of you is aligned around the same reality, you become a powerful broadcaster of that frequency. You stop sending mixed signals to the quantum field, and it stops sending mixed results back to you. But let's talk about what this looks like in practical terms, because embodying a new reality isn't just about changing your thoughts. It involves a complete reorganization of how you relate to life itself. When you live from your selected reality, you begin to make choices that the old version of you would never have made. Not because you're forcing yourself to be different, but because your internal compass has shifted. The things that used to excite you might lose their appeal. The problems that used to consume your energy might suddenly seem irrelevant. The people who used to drain you might find that they're no longer compatible with your frequency. This can feel disorienting at first, like you're becoming someone you don't recognize. But this isn't losing yourself. This is finding yourself. The version of you that lives your ideal reality has always existed as a potential. You're not becoming someone new. You're becoming who you've always been underneath the layers of conditioning and compromise. As this transformation deepens, you'll start noticing what I call reality confirmation signals. These are the moments when external reality begins reflecting your internal shift. Maybe you'll receive an unexpected opportunity that perfectly aligns with your new direction. Maybe you'll have a conversation that provides exactly the insight you need. Maybe you'll discover resources you never knew existed. These aren't coincidences. These are the quantum field responding to your new frequency. When you change your broadcast, reality changes its response. But here's the key. These confirmations come after you've made the internal shift, not before. The field responds to what you are, not what you're trying to become. This is why faith is so crucial in the early stages of this process. Not faith in some external power, but faith in the fundamental principles of how consciousness creates reality. Faith that your internal state matters more than external circumstances. Faith that the quantum field is always responding perfectly to your dominant frequency. And that faith gets easier to maintain as you begin to see results, because backward manifestation has a way of proving itself quickly. When you're truly embodying a new reality rather than just hoping for it, the field responds with remarkable speed. What used to take years of effort begins happening in weeks or months. What used to require struggle begins flowing effortlessly. This acceleration happens because you've aligned with the natural current of your desired timeline, rather than swimming against it. You're no longer fighting reality. You're riding it. You're no longer trying to force outcomes. You're allowing them to emerge from your coherent state of being. If this understanding is resonating with something deep inside you, if you can feel the truth of these principles in your bones, then I invite you to subscribe not just to this channel, but to this frequency. To join a community of people who understand that reality is malleable, that consciousness is creative, and that your internal state is the most powerful tool you have for shaping your experience. Because here's what I've discovered. Transformation is contagious. When you embody a new reality, you give others permission to do the same. Your coherence becomes an invitation for others to remember their own creative power. Your alignment becomes a beacon for those who are ready to step out of old patterns and into new possibilities. The mechanics of backward manifestation continue to unfold as you practice them, revealing layers of subtlety and sophistication that aren't apparent at first. One of the most important aspects to understand is what I call timeline coherence. The art of maintaining consistency with your selected reality, even when circumstances seem to contradict it. Timeline coherence means that every thought, every emotion, every action flows from the identity of someone who already lives your desired reality. It's not about perfection, it's about predominance. The majority of your mental and emotional energy needs to be aligned with your chosen timeline for the quantum field to recognize it as your dominant frequency. This is where many people falter. They'll embody their new reality for a few hours or a few days, but then something happens. A bill arrives, a relationship challenge emerges, a health issue surfaces, and they immediately snap back into old patterns of thinking and feeling. They abandon their selected timeline and return to the familiar frequency of lack or struggle. But these apparent contradictions aren't signs that the process isn't working. They're often the last remnants of old timelines being cleared from your experience. The quantum field has to reorganize around your new frequency, and sometimes that reorganization involves the surfacing and release of patterns that no longer serve your chosen reality. When these moments arise, your response determines everything. Do you let external circumstances convince you that your new reality isn't real? Or do you use these moments as opportunities to deepen your embodiment of your chosen timeline? The person who lives your ideal reality would handle these situations differently than the person who struggles with them. How would they think? How would they feel? How would they respond? This is the practice of reality override, consciously choosing your response from your selected identity rather than your habitual patterns. It's not about denying what's happening. It's about choosing how to be with what's happening. The same situation can either reinforce your old reality or confirm your new one, depending on which version of yourself you choose to embody in that moment. As you develop skill in reality override, you'll discover that you have far more control over your experience than you ever imagined. Not control in the sense of manipulating external circumstances, but control in the sense of choosing which timeline you align with in any given moment. This choice is always available to you, regardless of what's happening around you. The more consistently you choose alignment with your desired reality, the more that reality begins to stabilize as your new norm. What once required conscious effort becomes automatic. What once felt like pretending becomes your natural state. What once seemed impossible becomes inevitable. But let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle: quantum surrender. This might seem contradictory after everything we've discussed about conscious choice and deliberate embodiment, but surrender is actually the completion of the backward manifestation process. Quantum surrender isn't giving up, it's giving over. It's the recognition that once you've selected your reality and aligned with its frequency, your job is done. The how, the when, the specific pathway through which your reality manifests, these aren't your responsibility. Your responsibility is to maintain your state of being and trust the intelligence of the quantum field to orchestrate the details. This surrender is only possible when you've truly embodied your chosen reality. You can't surrender from a place of uncertainty or doubt. You can only surrender from a place of knowing. When you know that your reality is already established in the quantum field, when you know that your consistent embodiment is creating the bridge between potential and manifestation, then you can relax into the process. Surrender eliminates the last traces of effort and strain from your manifestation process. It's the difference between trying to make something happen and allowing something to happen. When you surrender, you stop monitoring the process and start enjoying the process. You stop checking for results and start living as if the results are already here. This is when manifestation becomes truly effortless, when you're no longer pushing or pulling, forcing or manipulating, trying or efforting. You're simply being. And in that state of pure being, aligned with your truth, the quantum field can work its magic without interference. The most beautiful part of this entire process is that it transforms not just what you manifest, but who you become in the process. Backward manifestation isn't just a technique for getting what you want. It's a path to becoming who you truly are. The version of you that lives your ideal reality isn't just someone who has different circumstances. They're someone who embodies different qualities, different wisdom, different love. As you align with this version of yourself, you don't just receive external changes. You receive internal transformation. You become more patient, more trusting, more present. You become more grateful, more generous, more authentic. You become more yourself than you've ever been. And this transformation ripples out into every area of your life, touching everyone around you. Your family feels it. Your friends notice it. Your work colleagues sense it. Strangers are drawn to it. You become a living example of what's possible when someone aligns with their truth and lives from that alignment. But let's explore something even deeper, what I call the quantum ripple effect. When you master backward manifestation, you don't just change your personal reality. You begin influencing the collective field of consciousness itself. Every time you embody a higher frequency, every moment you choose alignment over resistance, you're contributing to what scientists are beginning to understand as morphic resonance. The idea that when enough individuals embody a new pattern, it becomes easier for others to access that same pattern. Think about how certain breakthroughs in human understanding seem to happen simultaneously across the globe, even when the individuals involved have no contact with each other. Scientists call this the 100th monkey effect. Once a critical mass of consciousness reaches a new level of understanding or capability, that understanding becomes available to the entire collective. This is happening right now with quantum manifestation. As more people discover the power of backward manifestation, as more individuals learn to live from their desired outcomes rather than chase them, a new template is being established in the collective consciousness. Your mastery of these principles doesn't just serve your personal evolution, it serves the evolution of humanity itself. Every time you choose embodiment over effort, every moment you select certainty over struggle, you're casting a vote for a new way of being human. You're demonstrating that consciousness truly does create reality, that we don't have to be victims of circumstance, that we can be deliberate creators of our experience. This understanding brings with it a profound responsibility. Not the heavy burden of having to save the world, but the elegant responsibility of being authentic to your highest truth. When you live from your aligned state, when you embody the reality you've selected, you naturally contribute to the elevation of the entire field. Let me share with you what I call the consciousness cascade. As you stabilize in your new reality, as your frequency becomes consistent and coherent, you begin to activate dormant potentials in the people around you. Your presence becomes a tuning fork that helps others remember their own creative power. You don't have to try to teach or convince or convert anyone. Your aligned state does the work. People will find themselves asking you what's different about you. They'll want to know how you seem so calm in situations that used to stress you out. They'll wonder why opportunities seem to flow to you so effortlessly. And sometimes, just by being in your presence, they'll start remembering possibilities they had forgotten about themselves. This is how transformation spreads, not through preaching or convincing, but through being. Through the simple act of living as a demonstration of what's possible when someone aligns with their truth and refuses to compromise that alignment for external circumstances. But there's another layer to explore here. What happens when you begin to understand that every reality you could possibly experience already exists not just as potential, but as actual living timelines? The quantum field isn't just a collection of possibilities waiting to be collapsed into experience. It's an infinite web of parallel realities, all equally real, all equally accessible, all existing simultaneously. When you truly grasp this understanding, manifestation becomes less about creating something new and more about navigating between existing realities. You begin to see yourself not as someone trying to change their circumstances, but as a consciousness traveling between timelines, selecting which reality stream to experience. This perspective shift is revolutionary because it eliminates the last traces of powerlessness from your manifestation process. You're not hoping the universe will grant your request. You're not waiting for permission to experience what you desire. You're simply choosing which of the infinite realities you want to inhabit, and then aligning your consciousness with that choice. Imagine for a moment that you could see all possible versions of your life laid out before you, like frames in an infinite movie reel. There's the timeline where you're struggling financially. There's the timeline where you're abundantly wealthy. There's the timeline where you're single and searching. There's the timeline where you're in a deeply fulfilling relationship. There's the timeline where you're battling illness. There's the timeline where you're vibrantly healthy. All of these timelines exist simultaneously. The one you experience depends entirely on which one your consciousness is aligned with. When you understand this, manifestation becomes a matter of timeline navigation rather than reality creation. You don't have to build the reality you want. You just have to find it and step into it. This is what advanced practitioners of backward manifestation learn to do. They develop what I call quantum mobility, the ability to consciously shift between timeline streams. They learn to sense the frequency of different realities and align their consciousness with the timeline that matches their desired experience. Quantum mobility requires a level of consciousness fluidity that most people haven't developed. You have to be willing to let go of your attachment to being a fixed identity and embrace being a flowing consciousness. You have to release the need to understand how the shift happens and trust your ability to navigate by feel. When you develop quantum mobility, reality becomes much more fluid and responsive. Instead of waiting months or years for changes to manifest, you can experience shifts in days or even hours. Instead of working hard to create new circumstances, you simply slide into the timeline where those circumstances already exist. But this level of mastery requires something that most people resist: the complete dissolution of victim consciousness. As long as you believe that external circumstances have power over your internal state, as long as you think that other people or situations can determine your experience, you remain locked into reactive timelines. Quantum mobility is only possible when you fully embody the understanding that consciousness is primary and circumstances are secondary. When you know, not just intellectually, but in every cell of your being, that your state of consciousness creates your experience of reality. This knowing doesn't come from reading about it or thinking about it. It comes from practicing it consistently until it becomes your lived reality. It comes from choosing your state regardless of circumstances so many times that you prove to yourself that you have this power. Every time you choose peace in the middle of chaos, every time you choose abundance in the face of apparent lack, every time you choose love in response to fear, you're developing quantum mobility. You're training your consciousness to navigate between timelines based on your choices rather than your circumstances. As this capacity develops, you'll start noticing that reality responds to you differently. Things that used to be difficult become easy. Solutions appear where there used to be problems. Doors open where there used to be walls. Not because you're trying harder, but because you're aligned with timelines where these experiences are natural. This is the ultimate freedom, the freedom to choose your reality regardless of where you started, regardless of your history, regardless of what anyone else believes is possible for you. When you master backward manifestation, when you develop quantum mobility, you become truly sovereign in your experience. But sovereignty brings with it a deeper understanding of interconnection. As you become more free to choose your reality, you also become more aware of how your choices affect the collective field. You realize that your personal freedom and the collective evolution are not separate things. They're part of the same process. What old pattern or belief are you most ready to release as you step into this new understanding? Share in the comments what you're letting go of to make space for your quantum breakthrough. When you live from aligned choice rather than reactive patterns, when you embody possibilities rather than limitations, when you demonstrate what's possible through your way of being, you create what I call permission fields. Your aligned presence gives others permission to consider possibilities they might never have imagined for themselves. This is perhaps the most profound gift you can offer the world. Not your advice or your opinions or your attempts to fix or save, but your embodiment of what's possible when consciousness aligns with truth. Your living demonstration that reality is malleable, that timelines are navigable, that we are far more powerful than we've been taught to believe. As more people embody this understanding, as more individuals learn to navigate between timelines consciously, we're approaching what I call the tipping point of collective awakening. The point where enough people understand their creative power that it becomes impossible for the old paradigms of limitation and separation to maintain their hold on human consciousness. We're not there yet, but we're moving in that direction. And every person who masters backward manifestation, every individual who learns to live from their truth rather than their conditioning, accelerates this collective awakening. Your journey with quantum manifestation isn't just a personal adventure, it's a contribution to the most significant transformation in human history. The shift from unconscious to conscious creation, from reactive to responsive living, from limitation to possibility as our baseline experience. But perhaps the most revolutionary aspect of mastering backward manifestation is what happens to your relationship with time itself. When you're no longer trying to force outcomes, when you're living from the completion rather than working toward it, time begins to behave differently in your experience. Linear time, the belief that things must unfold step by step, that change requires duration, that manifestation is a process with a beginning, middle, and end, starts to dissolve. You begin experiencing what I call quantum time, where the past, present, and future exist as a fluid continuum that you can navigate with your consciousness. In quantum time, healing doesn't require years of therapy. It can happen in an instant when you align with the timeline where you're already whole. Financial abundance doesn't require decades of building wealth. It can manifest rapidly when you embody the frequency of someone who's always been abundant. Relationships don't require endless searching. They can appear effortlessly when you vibrate from the place of being deeply loved. This isn't about bypassing natural processes or denying the value of growth and development. It's about understanding that time is not the rigid, unchangeable force we've been taught to believe it is. Time is responsive to consciousness. When your consciousness aligns completely with a desired outcome, time reorganizes itself to support that alignment. You've probably experienced glimpses of quantum time without realizing it. Those moments when hours felt like minutes because you were so absorbed in something you loved. Those periods when solutions came to you instantly, seemingly out of nowhere. Those times when you met exactly the right person at exactly the right moment in a way that felt impossibly perfect. These weren't coincidences. These were moments when your consciousness was naturally aligned with the timeline that contained those experiences. When you learn to create this alignment deliberately, these magical moments become your normal experience. Mastering quantum time requires releasing your attachment to how long things should take. It means letting go of the stories you've been told about what's realistic or possible within certain timeframes. It means trusting that the quantum field can orchestrate outcomes far more efficiently than your linear mind can imagine. But there's another dimension to explore here, what I call the sovereignty of frequency. As you develop mastery in backward manifestation, you begin to understand that your frequency is your most valuable asset. Not your money, not your connections, not your skills or talents, but the vibrational state you consistently embody. Your frequency is like a radio signal that broadcasts to the quantum field 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It never stops transmitting, and the field never stops responding. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every belief you hold is contributing to the signal you're sending out. Most people broadcast a mixed signal. Part of their frequency says they want abundance, while another part broadcasts scarcity. Part of their signal calls for love, while another part transmits fear. Part of their transmission requests health, while another part emanates illness. These mixed signals confuse the quantum field and create mixed results. Frequency sovereignty means taking complete responsibility for the signal you're broadcasting. It means becoming so conscious of your thoughts, emotions, and beliefs that you can maintain coherent transmission regardless of external circumstances. It means developing the capacity to choose your frequency moment by moment, thought by thought, feeling by feeling. When you achieve frequency sovereignty, you become immune to the unconscious programming of others. Other people's fears don't trigger your fear. Other people's limitations don't activate your limitations. Other people's chaos doesn't disturb your peace. You maintain your chosen frequency regardless of what's happening around you. This doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. It means you become so grounded in your truth that you can extend love and compassion without absorbing others' pain. You can offer support without taking on others' problems. You can remain open and connected while maintaining your energetic boundaries. Frequency sovereignty is what allows advanced practitioners to manifest consistently, regardless of external conditions. Economic downturns don't affect their abundance. Global chaos doesn't disturb their peace. Collective fear doesn't activate their limitations. They've learned to generate their own frequency from within rather than absorbing frequency from without. This level of mastery transforms every interaction you have. Instead of being influenced by others' energy, you become an influence on others' energy. Your presence becomes a stabilizing force that helps others remember their own power. Your frequency becomes a tuning fork that resonates with the highest possibilities in every situation. People will start describing you as someone who has good energy or brings out the best in others. They might not understand what's different about you, but they'll feel drawn to your presence because coherent frequency is naturally magnetic. When someone is fully aligned with their truth, others feel it and want to experience that alignment themselves. But frequency sovereignty also reveals the deepest truth of backward manifestation. You are not manifesting from a place of lack, trying to create abundance. You are abundance itself, temporarily forgetting your true nature, and then remembering it. You're not trying to attract love from outside yourself. You are love, learning to embody your essence more fully. This understanding fundamentally changes the entire manifestation process. Instead of trying to get something you don't have, you're remembering something you are. Instead of working to attract external things, you're aligning with internal truth. Instead of hoping the universe will give you what you want, you're recognizing that you are the universe, expressing itself through the unique lens of your consciousness. When this recognition deepens, manifestation becomes an act of self-recognition rather than self-improvement. You're not trying to become someone new. You're remembering who you've always been. You're not creating a new reality. You're stepping into the reality that's always been yours. This is the ultimate backward manifestation, starting from the recognition that you already are what you seek to become. You already have what you desire to possess. You already live in the reality you want to experience. The only thing that changes is your awareness of these truths. From this place of recognition, manifestation becomes effortless because there's nothing to achieve. There's only truth to embody, alignment to maintain, frequency to stabilize. The external world becomes a reflection of your internal recognition, showing you in physical form what you've already accepted as true in consciousness. Now, as we come to the completion of this exploration, I want you to feel into everything we've covered. The understanding that manifestation works backwards, that you start from the outcome rather than reaching toward it. The recognition that every reality already exists in the quantum field, waiting for your selection. The practice of embodying your chosen timeline with such consistency that it becomes your natural state. Feel how different this is from everything you've been taught about creating change in your life. Notice how much more natural it feels than struggling and striving and trying to force outcomes. Sense the relief that comes from knowing that you don't have to earn your desires or prove your worthiness or convince the universe to give you what you want. You simply have to choose what already exists and live from that choice with unwavering consistency. You have to embody the frequency of your desired reality until that frequency becomes so natural, so automatic, that the quantum field has no choice but to reflect it back to you in physical form. This is not just a new way of manifesting. This is a new way of living, a new relationship with reality itself, a recognition that you are not separate from the creative force of the universe. You are that force, expressing itself through the unique lens of your consciousness. Take a moment now to feel into this truth. You are not a powerless being hoping for change from external sources. You are consciousness itself, playing in the field of infinite possibility, selecting experiences for the joy of experiencing them. Your desires aren't burdens to be carried or problems to be solved. They're invitations to explore new aspects of your unlimited nature. As you integrate this understanding, as you begin living from this new paradigm, remember that you're not just changing your own reality. You're contributing to a collective shift in how humanity relates to creativity and manifestation. Every person who learns to manifest backwards, who embodies their truth instead of chasing their desires, makes it easier for others to do the same. The more people who understand these principles, the more the world reflects the truth that consciousness creates reality. The more individuals who live from alignment rather than struggle, the more our collective reality shifts toward harmony and ease. Before we close, I want to invite you to participate in this collective transformation. Drop one word in the comments below that captures the energy you're choosing to embody moving forward. Not what you want to attract, but what you're ready to be. This single word is your signature to the quantum field, your declaration of the reality you're selecting. And if you feel called to stay connected to this frequency, to continue exploring the intersection of consciousness and quantum mechanics, I invite you to subscribe, not just to receive more content, but to stay aligned with this understanding, to remain part of a community that knows reality is malleable and consciousness is creative. Because here's the ultimate truth: the more of us who embody these principles, the more the world becomes a reflection of what's possible when consciousness aligns with truth. Your transformation isn't just personal, it's planetary. Your alignment doesn't just change your life, it changes life itself. Consider watching this video again tomorrow morning to anchor these frequencies deeper into your consciousness. And if this understanding has awakened something profound within you, share it with someone who's ready for this level of truth. When you share quantum consciousness principles, you're not just passing along information, you're creating energetic ripples that accelerate awakening for both yourself and the recipient, expanding the field of possibility for everyone. The quantum field is always responding. Reality is always shifting. Timelines are always available. The only question is which one you choose to embody, which frequency you choose to broadcast, which version of yourself you choose to be. You've been given the keys to the kingdom. Not the kingdom outside yourself, but the kingdom within. The infinite field of possibility that exists in the space of your own consciousness. Use these keys wisely. Use them consistently. Use them with the knowing that you are both the creator and the created, the observer and the observed, the dreamer and the dream. Your backward manifestation journey starts now, not with wanting or hoping or trying, but with choosing and embodying and being. Welcome to a new way of living. Welcome to quantum reality creation. Welcome to the truth of who you've always been. Now, since you've grasped how consciousness selects reality through embodiment, you're ready to understand something even more profound. How your perception creates the very mirror through which reality reflects back to you. In the observer mirror, reality reflects how you see yourself. You'll discover why your self-perception is the hidden force shaping every experience you have.